Hey there, marvelous viewers. Welcome to another marvelous video. This time, we'll be taking a look at an iconic, wisecracking, thug-zapping animated show from the early 2000s. We are, of course, talking about Static Shock, the TV series. This acclaimed animated show, created by Dwayne McDuffie and Dennis Cowan, is probably one of the most beloved properties of that generation and is still cited by many as one of their most formative experiences. Though Warner Brothers aimed this production primarily at the pre-teen audience, the show still brings issues like social discrimination and racial tensions to light. In late 2002, when Static Shock was first released, Virgil Hawkins, the teenage protagonist of the show, was the first African-American hero to ever lead their very own broadcast animation series. But if you're still unfamiliar with this path-breaking vigilante and his exploits, then this video is undoubtedly for you. Here we'll dive deep into all the aspects of Static Shock, from its production to its monumental legacy. However, before we move ahead, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. It might just be a click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Now let's begin. Embarking on an animated adventure. Fans of the TV show might largely remember Static as a family-friendly hero, but the vigilante first began its journey in a much more mature and gritty avatar in the pages of Milestone Comics. Formed in 1993, the fledgling comic was created by African-American writers who wanted to create heroes and stories from their own lived experiences. Though the company was eventually acquired by DC, Milestone's stories have always had a unique edge to them. In the 90s, after the success of animated series like Batman and Superman produced by Warner Brothers, DC Editor-in-Chief Jeanette Kahn commissioned the production of an animated show around a Milestone comic. Static was selected from a host of Milestone properties, and it was decided that the story would take place in the larger DC animated universe inhabited by Batman and Superman. Though most of the animators assigned to the project were industry veterans with the experience of working on Warner Brothers' other successes, some of the most definitive voices in Static Shock's development came from Milestone's offices. Static's co-creator Dennis Cowan and comic writer Dwayne McDuffie joined the team, and Static Shock soon carved out a niche for himself, even in the booming animated landscape of the early 2000s. The first episode aired on 23rd of September 2000 on the Kids Warner Brothers network and soon won over a host of fans. Virgil soon won us over with his charming, clever, and kind persona, while his alter ego Static was fascinated with his electromagnetic powers and daily encounters with crime. Despite the more mature elements of the show, like gun violence being toned down, Static Shock still tackled various societal issues in a heartfelt manner episode after episode. In addition to serving as the guardian of his hometown, the fictional Dakota City, our hero also navigates through tumultuous high school years which cast, making Static extremely relatable for audiences. Over its course, Static Shock has won numerous awards, including the Daytime Emmys, making the character a mainstream figure for many kids. Like any other successful kids media, Static also ended up with his own line of merchandise, but this proved to be a double-edged sword. Though the show ran successfully for 4 seasons, in the end, it was the failing merchandise sales that led to its cancellation. However, Static Shock is a show that is now firmly embedded into the pop culture zeitgeist and holds a place among DC's greatest successes. To understand how a relatively unknown figure from an obscure comic company earned such popularity, we will now dive into the depths of Static's story and character arc to see what made him tick with the audiences. Navigating the electric avenues of Dakota City. There's no better place to start this journey than the day 14-year-old high school student Virgil Hawkins was exposed to a mysterious chemical leak that led to him developing powers of electromagnetism. In the first episode, Shock to the System, we meet Virgil Hawkins, an everyday teenager who lives in Dakota City with his widowed father and sister. As a typical teenager, Virgil has all the typical problems, including the psychotic bully Francis F. Stop Stone. However, he also seems to have a benevolent protector in the form of Wade, who stops F-Stop from beating Virgil to a pulp. In return, Virgil is forced to join Wade's crew against his own wishes. Virgil's best friend is especially crushed by this, as Richie's mother died in a gang fire. Later tonight, Virgil finds himself at the dock with Wade's crew, where the members begin preparing for a huge throwdown against F-Stop's gang. The warehouse where the fight is about to take place is filled with mysterious canisters. Virgil tries his best to get out of the terrifying situation, but everything goes wrong when police helicopters arrive at the scene and fires tear gas grenades into the warehouse. One of these causes the mysterious metal containers in the warehouse to start leaking a strange gas in the air. This event would eventually come to be known as the Big Bang, as the purple gas leaking from the metal canisters ends up giving many of the characters in the vicinity, including Virgil, superpowers. At the very last moment, just as the police are entering the warehouse compound, Virgil manages to crawl over a fence and escape. The fall knocks him out, but he wakes up to find himself back in his room. Still, it is clear that something within Virgil has changed as he finds his blanket clinging to him, while electric appliances begin reacting to his presence. With the help of Richie, Virgil figures out that he can generate electromagnetic pulses from his body, which can be used in a wide variety of ways, like levitation and taser punches. After an impressive display of Virgil's powers, Richie assures his friend that he is indeed superhero material, and this is where the persona of Static Shock is born. Through the series, we learn that the mysterious gas inside the canisters in the warehouse is quantum vapor and can turn anyone it comes into contact with into a meta-human. Though we see glimpses of this in the first episode, the true consequences of this accident only come to light in the second, appropriately titled Aftershock. In this episode, we learn that the accident at the warehouse has led to the emergence of numerous bang babies. These victims began manifesting superhuman abilities after the accident, and many of these babies now run rampant in the streets. At the very beginning of the episode, Virgil, Richie, and Virgil's crush, Frida Gorin, run into a werewolf while visiting an electronics store. This monster goes wild and promptly proceeds to tear the store apart when he is suddenly blasted away by Virgil's bully, Francis Stone. Like Virgil, Francis has begun manifesting his powers in the form of pyrokinesis and has taken up the mantle of Hot Streak. As expected, Francis turns his attention to Virgil and his friends. With the help of his new powers and a couple of friendly firefighters, Hot Streak is defeated, but the threat of the Bang Babies looms over the city. This episode also provides us with more information about how the rest of Dakota City is dealing with this unprecedented situation. At an event, Virgil's father addresses a city council to acknowledge the severity of the issue, but the mayor shrugs off his demands. That night, Richie and Virgil discover the mayor meeting the businessman Edwin Alva, conducting a shadowy deal. Virgil uses his powers to listen to them across the city pond, where Alva tells the mayor that his company would welcome an investigation. On following Alva to his lab, Virgil hears Alva order his subordinates to wipe their mutagen formulas off their systems to evade the investigation. Virgil steals the secret disc with the formula, but is attacked by Alva's guard York, who is a meta-human himself. In the ensuing battle, York traps Static inside a container, but our hero eventually manages to find his way out of the trap. Meanwhile, Hot Streak recovers from his battle with Virgil and goes berserk. He begins wreaking havoc across town after escaping from the authorities, only to find Static standing in his way. Though Static outsmarts the bully and manages to leave him doused in sewage, the disc with all the information regarding Alva's mutagens is lost in the battle. This pattern is carried forward in many episodes of the series, but that's not to say that it gets repetitive. In the next episode, dubbed The Breed, we are introduced to Derek Barnett, a popular track athlete who begins to undergo strange changes. But this is just the beginning of Derek's ordeal, as one day, he suddenly loses control of his powers and transforms into an energy monster. This sudden realization that he is Bang Baby makes Derek spiral out of control, and he's soon lured in by the gang leader, Aban. Throughout the series, Aban and Static face each other on multiple occasions due to their contrasting ideologies regarding how the Bang Babies should utilize their powers. As a master manipulator, Aban preys on the babies, too mutated to go back to their old lives, and uses them as pawns for his group Meta Breed. Though Derek is eventually swayed by Aban, Static manages to convince Derek that going down the path of crime would only ruin his chances of having a normal life, reuniting the traumatized teenager and his mother. It is this depth nuance that elevates Static Shock above the standard kids TV show and into a category of its own. The fun part about watching Static Shock as a kid was that audiences could see their hero mature and grow in front of their very eyes. Over the 4 seasons, Static would use his wit and heart to outsmart almost every challenge and even win over numerous Bang Babies as his allies. A uniquely empathetic and understanding individual, Static even manages to win over Alva by helping him save his son. Alva Jr., when the latter overdosed as quantum vapor while posing as the villain Omnifarious. After this incident, Alva even shut down Project Omni, an initiative to discover Static's true identity. But Dr. Karen Roberts, the woman in charge of the project, is unmoved by Alva's change of heart and uses Static's true identity to attack the hero. In the penultimate episode of the show, Static's father is kidnapped by the Doctor, who now goes by the name of Omnara, and has assumed command of numerous Bang babies like Kangor, Shiv, and Carmandillo. Though Static and Richie rescue Virgil's father, their secrets are revealed. Despite this, Robert Hawkins decides to keep Static's secret to himself, further cementing Robert and Virgil as one of the greatest father-son duos to ever appear in a kids show. Power Outage is the final episode of the series to air before the show was cancelled in 2004. Here, our heroes are posed with the interesting question of living life without the powers they have already grown accustomed to. Dr. Todd, Dakota City's foremost scientist, had discovered a cure for the quantum gas, but this leads villains like Aban, Hotstreak, Talon, and Shiv to attack him to acquire the gas. Some of the meta-humans are relieved to go back to their former lives, but their leader, Aban, begins to plan on recreating the Bang. This would create even more meta-humans, providing him with an army. Static finds himself on the trail of his arch-nemesis, but the leader is already having problems with his crew, especially Hotstreak. As the two fight over the last vial of quantum gas, the chemical is released by accident, which mutates Aban and Hotstreak even further. They merge into an entity comprising both Hotstreak's flames and Aban's shadows. In a destructive battle, Static manages to defeat both his greatest enemies at once in an oddly poetic ending to this iconic show. Now that we're caught up on the show's main storyline, let's turn our attention towards the characters that make Dakota City come to life. Characters. Virgil Hawkins, aka Static. The titular hero of this entire saga, Virgil starts off as an everyman teenager quite reminiscent of Peter Parker. But the difference between these two optimistic heroes lies in their environments. As an African-American teenager, Virgil grew up in a much more turbulent climate. Virgil's mother, Jean, died when he was just 10 while helping the victims of a gang riot. The teenager shares his home with his father, the social activist Robert Hawkins, and his sister, Sharon. Writer Dwayne McDuffie has stated in numerous interviews how important it was for them to do justice to Virgil's character, despite removing much of the mature content. This causes Virgil to face numerous dilemmas and situations that imply much darker themes like racial tensions, gang warfare, and discrimination. Static's appeal as a character lies not in his ability to shoot electric bolts, but in the sensitivity with which he handles these issues. Often he ends up rescuing the villains from themselves, as we saw in the case of the aforementioned Derek. As a hero, Static exhibits a versatile range of abilities, such as the ability to use his electromagnetism in the form of bolts and fields. In addition to this, he can use the electric charges to amplify his physical attacks like punches and kicks. Virgil's powers also allow him to manipulate technology and use it remotely for espionage. Though his use of gadgetry is fairly limited, Static does rely on a retractable mylar disc called the Static Saucer, crafted by Richie, as it allows the hero to levitate. In the animated series, Static's voice belongs to Phil Lamar. Richie Foley, aka Gear. The character Richie, voiced by Jason Marsden, is first introduced as a typical sidekick and confidant to Virgil. As Virgil's best friend, he is the first person to know Virgil's true identity. He is the designer behind some of Static's most trusted equipment like the Mylar disc, a shock box for communication, tracking devices, and zap caps. Though quite content with being a sidekick, at the beginning of the show, Richie begins to harbor feelings of jealousy for his best friend, and these are exploited by the villain Ragtag during one of the show's most intense story arcs. It is eventually revealed that through his passive exposure to the quantum gas, Richie has developed super intelligence, and this enables him to invent a super-powered suit, which finally enables Richie to join his friend on the battlefield as the hero, Gear. Francis Stone, aka Hotstreak. Francis was one of the first antagonists of the Bang Babies to be revealed in the show. Possessing powers of pyrokinesis, Francis has given Static a hard time on multiple occasions. Their enmity is deepened by the fact that even before their powers began manifesting, Francis took a special pleasure in bullying Virgil. An unhinged maniac, Hotstreak has a knack for going berserk at a moment's notice. And unlike other criminals, he isn't driven by greed or power. Instead, Francis exhibits a total disregard for anything or anyone. This makes him an equally unpredictable individual, whether he is an ally or an enemy, as his first instinct when faced with a problem is to turn it into ashes. Francis's hot-headed persona is portrayed perfectly in the series by voice actor Danny Cooksey. Ivan Evans, aka Aban. A juvenile delinquent and gang leader, Aban functions as the antithesis of Static. Like Virgil, Aban gains superpowers like shadow manipulation from the blast. With his abilities, Aban becomes the master of shadow and darkness, which allows him to flatten against surfaces, glide along walls, slip through doors, create portals, and jump between shadows. He can also draw others into his shadows and shapeshift into any physical form. A cunning criminal and manipulator, Aban exhibited disturbing traits from the very beginning. His endless ambition to climb to the top of the criminal world has put him at odds with not just Static and the authorities, but even his own family, as we will soon see. Aban is also a member of the meta-human criminal gang Metabreed. The members of Metabreed are some of Static's most ferocious enemies and include the bird-like meta-human Talon and the weapon conjurer Shiv. Aban is voiced by Gary Sturgis. Adam Evans, aka Rubberhand Man. Adam, Aban's younger brother, is yet another victim of the Big Bang gas leak. As a result, Adam developed the power of stretching his body to any shape and size, as well as shape-shifting. His body exhibits all the qualities of natural rubber, providing him with a clear advantage over Static due to rubber's resistance to electricity. Adam is an anti-hero in the series, as he originally seeks to use his powers to avenge a music producer who plagiarized his music. After being in and out of prison a couple of times, Adam would learn the error of his ways and switch sides to join Static as a trusted ally. For a while, Adam even dated Virgil's sister Sharon. However, their romance ended when Adam's cover was blown.
This is her definition of little?
The lasting impact of the show. To understand the long-lasting impact Static Shock had on other animated shows and superheroes in general, it is essential that we acknowledge the world in which it takes place. Much like our own, Static's world is rife with conflict, discrimination, and violence. The show is a milestone in terms of representation, as this is the first time African-American teens found a relatable hero on their TV screens. The show also takes a deep interest in the communities it depicts and is incredibly careful not to reinforce stereotypes and conventions. Just take a look at the critically acclaimed episode Sons of Fathers from the very first season. In this episode, Virgil suffers discrimination and mistreatment at the hands of Richie's father. Despite all his powers, Virgil is disheartened to find that even his best friend's father harbors such deep hatred towards his community. Instead of shying away from this sensitive topic, Richie confronts his father and calls him out on his bigotry. But the show doesn't stop at just this. In a very evocative scene, Virgil discusses with his own father how someone as good-hearted as Richie could have a father who is a racist. Mr. Hawkins explains to his son that though there is no logic to racism, the only thing that matters is that Virgil's best friend has his own mind. Over the course of this episode, we see Richie's father introspect and discard his outdated beliefs to start a more positive relationship with his son and even Virgil. This is but one of the many instances where Static Shock deals with serious societal issues, and this bold storytelling would become synonymous with the show. Even in 2024, the show is championed for bringing about the dawn of a new age of children's TV where such problems could be tackled. Static Shock's utmost sincerity to marginalized communities and their cultures is a testament to the fact that media for children does not need sugarcoating in order for it to be successful. Due to the success of the TV show, DC incorporated many of the changes into its comic book storyline. Moreover, Static has now become a mainstay of the DC roster of characters and has worked alongside heroes like Superman and Batman over the years. He is also a decorated member of the Justice League and has appeared among their ranks in various forms of media from animation to comic books.
Hey Doc, remember me? Hot streak?
Marvelous verdict. Though it is true that Static's journey began on the comic pages, it is in this 2000s TV show that the hero really found his groove. Not only did it make Static a household name, but it also provided a platform for young audiences to discover the character. It is certain that its enduring legacy is the result of a perceptive and sensitive creative effort which endeared the young teenager to many heroes. No matter how much time has passed since the show first graced our screens, one can still look up to Static as an epitome of justice and compassion. And that is it for today. Please let us know what facets of Static's story you would like us to cover in the future in the comments down below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe so that we can keep bringing such content to our marvelous viewers. See you all next time. Until then, have a good one and take care. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.